week in racing. It's time to recap it. And who better to do it than Michael and Magic? Two bros/pros who cover the highs and lows of racing around the globe on every one of their shows. Real fans look forward to these guys and their last dance, cause they know they're not talking out of their royal ascot. What they say makes sense. So ladies and gents, sit back and relax as Blinkers Off presents The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? It's Magic with RacingDudes.com here for another special edition of The Magic Mike Show. And joining me first off is Mr. Aaron Halterman with the Racing Dudes. Aaron, how you doing today, buddy?
And I'm crashing your party today, Magic, and I'm happy to do it. I don't come on Magic Mike very often, but when you're talking like when we talked about Fauner Park way back in March, I had to come on because that's my track, right? But the real track and my home track is Will Rogers Downs. And we got the track announcer at Will Rogers Downs on. I'm like, I have to be on this show. So I'm going to let you handle California. Go ahead. Talk Del Mar all you want. Let all the people know about Del Mar. I'm here for Will Rogers Talk, Magic.
This is a gentleman we're bringing on that I'm extremely excited to have. I know Aaron is too, not just because Aaron loves Will Rogers or because I love Del Mar, but this is a gentleman who, no joke, is one of the nicest, most genuine people I've ever met in the sport. And Aaron and I have been big fans of him since we first met him at Del Mar a couple of years ago. He's been more than nice enough to have me on his pre-race show at Del Mar twice now. And hopefully when the pandemic ceases in 2021, I'll be able to come back on for more. But let's not waste any time, Aaron. Let's bring him in. Joining us from Del Mar, Mr. John Lees. John, good morning, sir.
Man, good morning, guys. Good morning to both of you. And I'm really looking forward to this. I was very flattered to get the call. I'm a big fan of what the Racing Dudes do. I watch you guys as every chance that I get. You guys are knowledgeable. You're reaching out to a younger audience, which we have to have. And it's just, it's not stiff and formal. It's just you guys are really honest about your observations. And I just like what you do. So I'm glad to be asked to do this. And I noticed, too, that in one of your what is it, the preview, your trailers, you've got a shot of us doing the preview show, the John Lee show over at Del Mar. So I was flattered to see that. I think that's kind of cool. You know what I'm talking about, right? In your trailer, yep. the lead in. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. You've been a great guest there. Yeah. So
well,
good morning,
you. Yeah,
everybody.
It's really an honor to have you on. This is if you don't know, John wears many hats and his virtual hats because his hair is actually too good to be hidden by a hat when he's on camera. But John, the Del Mar meet is coming up. The fall meet starts tomorrow on Halloween, and we have a short fall meet, but it's always fun at Del Mar. You're getting ready to come back and host a pre-race show, so we'll start there. Talk to us about what your duties are like at Del Mar on a daily basis.
Well, this year has been obviously very different because of the pandemic. Normally, as you know, Curtis, because you've been part of it, we do a pre-race, what I've kind of called the John Lee show, because it sort of turned into that. I bring on a guest and we handicap the races, but try to have a good time and yuck it up a little bit, but actually give some real picks. So that's kind of out of production this year, just owing to, social distancing and what have you. So the fall will be much like the summer. My day will start via simulcast with you when the horses are in the paddock for the first race. And that's at about, usually we try to hit that at about 19 minutes out. And I just give like a quick preamble. If you guys have seen it before, I'll talk about what the stakes race is for the day, what any changes might be, how beautiful the weather is, and stuff like that. And in the paddock, I give 1-2 picks. I try to. They put them up on graphics just for selections. And I usually lead with those. But then with the time that they give me, I try to it's like 5 minutes of just, okay, pour out everything that's on your mind right now about this race. And sometimes I cover the whole field. Sometimes I don't get a chance to do so. I might try to touch on some paddock observations. I'm a big fan of what Maggie Wolfendale does at Naira, by the way. I don't get as much of an opportunity to go as in depth as she does, but I try, if I see something or a couple of things that I like, I'll toss that out. This horse looks good. This is why I like the 4, or something like that. Oh, I didn't like this horse on paper, but you know what? You got to look at this, something like that. I'll try to give and also too, as you probably know, I try to avoid simply handicapping the race out loud in black and white that everybody can see. Tell them something they don't know, a key horse coming out of a race, a trend, a track bias, something that is going to be of interest to the people betting on this race that they can't see in the racing form or because they're not there. So that's what I do, and we do that for each race, and that's about what you can expect on Del Mar simulcast. And boy, I can't believe I've done that since 2007. So it's been quite a while.
Wow, I didn't realize you've been
Yeah,
doing it for that long either.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
So
been quite a while.
you grew up in horse racing a little bit, right? You were telling me that your dad is a former was a trainer when you were younger, and you kind of grew up around the sport. Talk us through about how you got started in the industry and your ultimate dream job, which you actually got to do for the first time during the summer.
Absolutely. So it all was because of my dad, who has passed away, but I had a wonderful relationship with my dad. I was just real quickly the youngest of four. And when the other three were growing up, my mom and dad operated their own businesses, and they were actually in the donut shop business in the 70s and the 80s when that was actually a thing. So that started to go away. Yeah. For a number of reasons, that kind of went down the road. They sold their last donut shop in 1990, and my dad transitioned into the horse business. He was always around it. He was an agent. So my dad, Richard Lees, was a small-time trainer here in Southern California. He trained out at San Luis Rey Downs, but this was decades ago when that was a small training facility, and not like it was now since the closure of Hollywood Park when it became a bigger training facility like it is now. It was a smaller group then. So it really was just the household shoestring thing that I would be going into the barns with him. I was the one that worked in the barns and with the horses instead of going to the donut shop. So I developed that interest, yeah, because of just following my dad to the races. I'm from Southern California in Orange County originally in Huntington Beach, but then we moved down here to San Diego when I was about 9 or so. And immediately that's when Trevor Denman caught my attention, because it was around about that time when he started in 1984. And that I have vivid memories of sitting in the box seats in 1984 when my dad ran a horse there that year. His name was Quattrini. He actually finished third that day. I thought it was a big deal. And Trevor Denman's voice caught me for the very first time. So that was the start of just kind of setting the dream in motion as far as like what I might want to do when I grow up, because I think I was about 9 or 10. I got to meet him about a year later up in the booth. This was the old Del Mar, the old grandstands. I got to meet him up there as a kid. Just loved what he did, just him as the person, but also the job itself. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. It's a great glimpse, if you ever get a glimpse into that, to go to the announcer's booth. And so that's kind of how it started. Every year I went back and saw him as I grew older. I got a job at Del Mar as an usher in the grandstands when I was 16. That was in 1993. That was the first year of the new grandstands that exist today. So I've literally worked there as long as you can possibly do that. I've worked every job there that you can think of. I was a press box steward up in the press box. I was a steward's aide. There were some years where I was working mostly with my dad as an assistant. I also worked for Vladimir Surin, worked for John Sadler, but this is all way back before I ever called any races. But then I started calling races when I was 28 and have, been at a variety of places since then. I had a lot of opportunities, but Del Mar is definitely the home track. So everything came full circle over the summer when I got the great opportunity to call those races there the last week. So that's the Del Mar. Yeah.
that is an incredible journey. I knew that you grew up around racing, but just so many different things that you've done. And I do want to go back to that last thing you mentioned, the being able to call races at Del Mar. With Trevor Denman, because of the pandemic concerns, decided to stay home in Minnesota for the summer and the fall, and hopefully we can get him back in 2021. Larry Colmus, a more than capable replacement for him to stand in, is doing the sprint, did the summer and the fall, but he also has the commitments with the Triple Crown season. So he had to leave a little early, was gone for Labor Day weekend. And when they went looking for a track announcer to fill in, that they didn't have to go too far because you have plenty of experience. So talk to us about your race calling experience. And you mentioned Trevor Denman was kind of your influence there, but what actually was your first job in that realm?
Yeah, I was so flattered just to get the opportunity, because believe me, Del Mar had many, many options for something like that. It's a big stage, it's a coveted stage, and I was flattered just to get the opportunity. So that part was great. As far as how it all started, so I mentioned, the part with my dad. It was a little bit different than somebody, for example, Matt Dinnerman, who's young right now, jumped right into it at a very young, 20-something age. I kind of veered a little bit. I spent some years as a trainer, like I said, an assistant trainer on that side of it, and did a few things. So I was 28, a little bit older, when I got my first job at Lone Star Park. That was in Texas. That started, actually, one of the first influences I had was the late Luke Kreitbos, who only lived 47 years, and he was a great announcer, and he left a lasting impression on a lot of us. And I got a chance to become a good friend of his, and he was a very, very good guy, and just somebody that we lost too soon. But anyway, I got the opportunity to fill in for him at Ellis Park in Kentucky. That's the Pea Patch. It was in August of 2004, and that was off virtually no calls. Vic Stauffer, also in the beginning, he was the announcer at Hollywood Park at that time. And as I mentioned, I was based in Southern California. I was here doing all those jobs at that time, but I had to do something. It's kind of the old, how do you get a demo without a job, and how do you get a job without a demo type thing? How do you start is what everybody asks. So I practiced on the roof into the binoculars. Through Vic, I got to call a race at Hollywood Park. And then through Vic, who knew Luke, he let me come call some races at Kentucky. So just little by little, you know what I mean? You kind of creep in there. And off of the demo of about 30 calls in my life, Darren Rogers, who is now with Churchill Downs, at the time he was at Lone Star Park, and he gave me the opportunity they took a shot on a rookie, basically, that had no experience. And I got that job in 2005. That was the year after Lone Star ran the Breeders' Cup, and Michael Rona was there at the time. It's hard to keep track of this, actually, if you really think about where everybody's coming from. Isn't it just maddening how the announcers have to do this? But anyway, Michael had to leave at that time. I got my chance, and that was the rookie break in 2005. But since then, so I stayed there for 10 years. I got the opportunity to kind of expand my role at Will Rogers. I know we'll talk more about that, but I've been lucky enough to get opportunities to call races at over a dozen, probably about 15 tracks all over the place, either as a guest or semi-temporary or full-time. And that's how it started, though. So I was 28. It started at Lone Star Park.
Wow. That is the announcer thing it's always seemed like musical chairs, because I only got into the sport a few years ago, and Aaron's a big historian of the game. So every once in a while he'll say, "Oh, back in 2004, you should watch this race." And I'm like, "Oh, that's okay. That's Michael Rona, but he's not at Santa Anita. He's not at Los." And it's everything is all thrown off for me in that aspect. Aaron, I'll let you take over, because now we're getting to John calling races and handling everything that he does more in your realm here. So I know you had some questions for John.
Yeah, so for the funny thing about the first time you and I met, John, we were sitting side by side at the Breeders' Cup, and I looked over because you were working at Del Mar and you were on camera most of the time, and so your seat was by me in the press box. I was like, I'm never going to see this guy because he's on camera all the time. Well, after the race, he comes up, and I just say, John, it's great to meet you. Believe it or not, I don't know you from Del Mar. I know you from Will Rogers, and I'll never forget the look on your face. You're kidding me, right? But yeah, Will Rogers, my home track. My dad and I go there all the time. We love it. So to transition to Will Rogers, first of all, talk a little bit about how you ended up there, and then kind of the follow up from that is, what was the culture shock like for you being a guy from San Diego and now you're in Claremore, Oklahoma calling races?
So it started in, boy, those are extraordinary questions too. It started in, oh, no, wait, I gotta go back first. I gotta go back. At the Breeders' Cup, let's be honest, and Magic, you know this too, we were in the auxiliary press box. We were on the also eligible list, okay? The press box was over there, and we were kind of over here. So
we were on the roof behind everything.
I believe that there was some tenting. It was a tenting situation. Anyway, grateful to be there. Fabulous opportunity, but you got to make friends in a situation like that, don't you? So it was bound to happen. Anyway, moving on from that, Will Rogers Downs, that started in 2013. At the time, I was still going on strong with Lone Star Park. They reached out to me because they needed an announcer to call their spring thoroughbred meet only, which is March, April, and May. So long story short, the days jived such that I was able to do both. I could do Lone Star at the time was like a Thursday through Sunday thing. Will Rogers was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, probably like they a little bit are right now. So I did the Express. I literally, for a short period when they overlapped, I would drive back and forth between Tulsa and Dallas. It's about 3.5 hours for me. I did that so that's how it started, was 2013. I did that for a few seasons just in the spring to take care of their thoroughbred meet. But I was able to develop a relationship with the general manager, Mark Enterline, who is my boss now. And at the end of 2015, they needed a racing secretary. And I do have experience, of course. You've learned a little bit about my background, but what we have not talked about is a world that's kind of foreign to a lot of handicappers and horse players called the racing office. How does that even? And you know what else too? You know why else too? It doesn't get any real attention, I don't think, on major television coverage because it's a little bit boring. It's a little bit behind the scenes. It's a little bit that okay, we want to see the post positions and the past performances and the odds, but nobody really cares about what's going to happen over there. Just get it to us, right? Listen, there's a lot that is kind of an untapped gold mine back there that people could get into that actually is quite interesting. So side note on that, my boss offered me the job as their racing secretary at the end of 2015, a job that I had never held before, that quite frankly, I think they were taking a risk on based on my experience in racing offices here in Southern California. But I don't know, guys. I've always been a person through my life that's been fortunate enough to learn just by jumping in and figuring it out. And that's essentially what I had to do because I wasn't trained formally at somewhere like U of A to do that. But I had enough experience in the office and I know the game that I jumped in and did it. And here we are 5 years later, and it's been strong. I had to learn a lot about quarter horses, but my thoroughbred background was strong enough, and it's gotten better every year. And like I said, I've been a full-blown racing secretary for 5 years, in addition to their announcer. So I don't know. It seems like a one-of-a-kind situation. I don't know how relatable that is to a lot of other announcers or racing secretaries, but it's a blend that works for me. And even though it's a small track, it's a lot of responsibility. But you know what? I thrive on it. I'm somebody that I don't waste time. I don't have a lot of time to waste. I can't be bored, and I just always am pushing to do more. So that's kind of how that started. So that's been for 5 years, and it's been the combination of that.
It's well, we're very happy that you had at least a half hour to waste with us today.
Yeah, that's right.
I know that's not how you meant it, but I was listening to this. I was like, it sounds like John's telling us to get out.
No, I got all the time you need. Time management. That's what it's all about. So, in fact, right before we went on, I was clicking to go find out what the morning line odds of Will Rogers over the weekend for their Sunday quarter horse card. So it's just everything's kind of going on at once. It's welcome to John's little situation here with the J cup of coffee. That's just what we do. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, you do wear every hat at the track. It seems like at Will Rogers, like you know, if I'm sure a lot of people, and we'll get into this for a second with the pandemic, have watched Will Rogers now. They're listening, but you know, track announcer, like doing the little handicapping show, kind of, you know, sort of what you do at Del Mar, but you do it also at Will Rogers, where you preview the horses, make the morning line, and then the behind the scenes stuff with the racing secretary. It's crazy. But I got to ask you, the first time you got to Will Rogers, I mean, you had to have been like, "What? Where am I?" Right?
well, yes and no. And you asked that before. You're right. So yes, because the city of Claremore, for those that don't know, wow. I mean, it is. You want to talk about country? I mean, that is a country little town with a train that's spread out, and there's very little. There's just a lot of fast food and trucking, and it's just an odd thing. So yes, that would be culture shock for anybody. But no, in the sense that I really developed a lot of adaptable skills when I moved to Dallas, Fort Worth for the first time when I was 28, when I got the job at Lone Star Park. Because that was my first time living outside of Southern California at all. I went to Westmount College in Santa Barbara. I worked at all the tracks in Southern California. I never really lived anywhere else. But it made me, now Texas and Oklahoma are different, but there are also similarities in that region. They've got 4 seasons and stuff. So I kind of was not completely unaware of severe thunderstorms and things like that. So I got a taste of it in Texas. Oklahoma is different, but you just adapt. It's just part of life. And a lot of racing people are that way too, you know, especially horsemen and jockeys. I said, look at how it is right now. Everybody's all over the place. It's just in the racing world, you have to be able to adapt sometimes. And also as certain circuits shrink and some tracks go away, I mean, people are forced to move to other circuits. And so you got to be a little bit adaptable. So Claremore is kind of a backwards place. That's for sure. Let's not pretend for a minute. Yeah, it's a different deal out there. So,
well, when I heard and I learned that you're from California, I couldn't wait to meet you that day, or hope to meet you at the Del Mar, because like I got to ask him about this, you know, because it's so different. But let's move on a little bit to this year, because this had to have been a thrilling year for you, where basically Will Rogers Downs and Fawner Park carried the horse industry through Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Really incredible to think about. Kind of talk about that the year that was there, the spring meet there, Will Rogers Downs, and kind of the things that you did to, because you made some subtle changes that I noticed to kind of bring Will Rogers Down really to the forefront and make it player friendly as well.
Well, thank you. The first thing that we had to do once we realized that we were just about the only show in town is we had to expand our wagering menu. I mean, we were stuck in the Stone Age with like an early and a late double, and it's just so. But you also don't want to offer these wagers when you have no handle and no audience, and every pick three pays 2 out of 3. That's just ridiculous. Nobody wants that either. So our meet started about March 15th, 17th, whatever it was, literally when the pandemic took its grip on everything. So we were thrust into the spotlight in about a week or two. And it became something that grew week by week as far as the handle that we were noticing, the response from the horse players. And so I was quickly forced to treat it like a full-blown major circuit race meet as far as the caliber of horses that I had to choose from, the races that we would offer, the field size. The only thing we didn't have was a turf course, but neither does Oaklawn Park, and it was winter. So that really wasn't that big of a deal, truly, for us to be able to expand everything. So all of a sudden, we've got the overall average field size for the meet was 8.8. In the month of May, it was over 9. So it was nice to have all those horses. The biggest challenge for me was making sure that we were making races with horses that were making the best races that we could as far as the most competitive cards, and not filling the races with too many horses that would be shipping in from out of state that are literally not on the grounds when we're taking entries. Because what if I've got a full field of 12 and yeah, they're all coming from 17 different states, but 6 of them just decide to enter up, take a look. Well, I can't beat this horse, so I'm just going to scratch. And you've got a 6-horse field. No, so that was, and this is what I'm talking about. These are the things that people don't talk about, so that they don't think about. So that was a big burden for me when we showed up to take entries. I've got to create races that will not just fall apart for that reason. So you had to kind of do some checking, calling a lot of trainers that we were not very familiar with that don't normally race at a track like that. We had to be diligent, and I thought it went well as far as that goes. But just, opening up, making sure that I'm blending cards. And I think that my background helped with this in terms of just approaching each day like a horse player. What would I want to bet on? Okay, these races should be in the pick 5. This race shouldn't. This is a good race. This is a field of 7, but you know what? They're all terrible. Let's not use this race. These are the kind of things, no, really, that we do think of. Well, but here's the other thing, though. When I don't use that race at 7, I'm going to get a phone call from a couple of trainers in that race. Why didn't you use my race? And you just cater to the big trainers, don't you, Mr. Hollywood? So listen, it's not, oh yeah, there's people that have got opinions about me from California that are so, don't you know, we know all movie stars. Curtis, you're a movie star. I know others. Right. So it's just, and Aaron, you know this too, because this is you know what it's like in Oklahoma. So it's a little bit different.
That's right. I would be the one calling you Mr. Hollywood if it was me.
Can I jump in? I want to ask you a question because I was reminded about this. So first off, we were talking about Will Rogers. You guys, I'm looking back at the Pollock report because they did a great write-up about it too. March of 2019, a little over 2 million in handle. March of 2020, 15.7 million. So you literally just have that like an unbelievable skyrocket in your handle. It's over 650%. And you went from 29 races carded in that month the year before to 67. So everything's growing. And like a good business, they started trying to figure out what else can we add to this. And you talked about the wagering menu. And then you added the pick 5, which was great. And then they said, well, let's make this a jackpot format. So 50% gets paid out, 50% carries over. And the horse players really didn't like that. And because it was only, 2 or 3 tracks we could bet on at the time, everyone's focus went, instead of the anger that normally goes to Naira or Churchill or California racing, everybody just zeroed right in on poor little Will Rogers. And you guys responded immediately and effectively and said, nope, never mind. Before this even has a chance to make people mad on the day of, you scrapped it. So can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you to see the reaction and how quickly everyone was able to react and fix it for us?
Well, it was because of two things: social media, and that's easy to see because it's right there. So I'm on Twitter, I'm seeing all of this, and I immediately redirect that to my general manager. And the second thing is that he, on his end, at the level that he operates at, he got some toss back from somebody. I think it was I think it was Keeneland, actually, somebody on their department that saw it. And so it was just coming from all different directions internally. And he and I talked. Of course, this was from the announcer's booth between like the second or third race or whatever it was. And we said, look, we got to get in front of this right now, and I'll be clear, he makes the decisions as the general manager, but I offered my opinion. I showed him the evidence, and I think that we got it right pretty quickly. The outcome was good. I don't mean to discredit the contribution of other managements at other tracks that operate differently, that like their jackpot wagers. That is fine for them. For us, I just didn't think that it was the right decision. And I'm glad that we opted the way that we did. And I hope that you guys would agree. And it caught on really well because we were able to make a good pick five with good races that people wanted to bet on. And they didn't feel like they were being robbed, and they felt like their voice was heard. And as you guys know very well, the young players especially, and everybody, their voice has to be heard. And Twitter is an easy, obvious way to be connected to everybody. So, but here's the thing. Social media has not caught on quite as quickly as a place like that, and Aaron knows what I'm talking about. So this was, yeah, I had to jump in, and so we handled it more like a big boy track would, didn't we? So there you go.
No, I thought that was fantastic. Yeah, and then like Magic said, it was great that it was quick. You didn't roll it out for 3 weeks and then make a decision, because a lot of times in racing that will happen. They're not as proactive, but I like that it was a quick decision. So yeah, it was good. I mean, and I think it was absolutely, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I think it was the right choice, for sure. So there's one horse I have to ask you about. All right.
All right.
This may be the only reason. No, it's not the only reason, but the main reason I came on. This is my favorite race call of your career. It's definitely Welder at Will Rogers, when he won $1 million, when he exceeded $1 million. You got to talk about Welder in that race call.
So Welder is an exceptional horse. He's an Oklahoma bred that is one of the best. Funny enough, he's got a ways to go if they were ever to shoot for being the most accomplished Oklahoma bred ever. He's not. You've got Lady Secret, who was the horse of the year in 1986. She was an Oklahoma bred. There are other millionaires, so he's just kind of part of the club. But he's certainly earned his right. I don't mean to put it that way, but the thing that's cool about him is that unlike all of the others, his backyard is right across the street from Will Rogers Downs, on the farm of Ray Max Phone, his owner, Clayton Rash, who owns him there. And so they just have to put him on the van for a short trip across the street to come and run him. He was expected to win that day, and he did his job. The drama that surrounded that day, though, was the fact that we had a severe thunderstorm that was brewing up that afternoon. And most tracks run the feature as the next to last race, and we did that day as well. We probably could have run it earlier in the day because it was a short field, but on that day, we just elected not to. And as you know, Aaron, thunderstorms in that region usually happen at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon because they need some time for the heat to kick up for something like that to happen. So we were in this rush to try to beat the weather, and it was hot and humid, and you can see that it's brewing. And I'm thinking, we don't want this. We want to just run the race. Yep. So we did, and we ran it. And I was a little bit, just because I knew the significance of the event that was coming ahead, I had excitement, and there was some anxiousness in me, but because I was looking forward to what was coming, and I just wanted it to go right. I just wanted everything to go well. I wanted him to win. There are few times, honestly, at least for me in my announcing career, that you're actually rooting for a horse, but that was one of those times. The other, of course, was when Tizamagician won the Del Mar allowance, but that's another story. So we don't have to talk about that. So there you go. So it was great. I appreciate the compliment on the race call. You just always hope that from my experience so far, you just want to live up to the event. You don't want to overdo it. My style has never been to growl and scream and shout. It's just not what I do, but I just want to bring the appropriate enthusiasm to what we're doing. And I thought that it turned out well. So yeah, that was a biggie. Yeah, it was a big day.
the thing that I appreciate about what you just said is when you're, I'm not going to name an announcer, but if you're a certain announcer and you go crazy every time anything happens, then you don't get that special element when it's a big deal. But like for you, and I would say Dale Day, I would throw him in there as well, just to stick with the Oklahoma theme. You guys are very, it's very analytical. We're trying to get it accurate. But then when something big happens and you get that, and we got that with Welder, and I don't know, I kind of felt like you got it with Tizamagician a little bit too. I kind of felt a little extra there. But it's just like, now that was something special. Like I listen to this guy day in and day out. He doesn't like raise his voice like that very often. I don't know. I just think that adds a little something to it. So yeah, I thought you did a great job. Magic, do you want to talk about the Tizamagician call?
Sure. I mean, it was that whole race because he was been on a losing streak, and anybody who's listened to the Magic Mike show knows that I have an irrational dislike for specifically the jockey that was being paired with him before. Nothing against the jockey personally, but so I had lost any faith that this horse was going to do something until they gave him the ultimate equipment change. So I was only half watching it. It was Kentucky Derby day. I had already seen Tiz the Law, who was about my heart horse in the Derby Trail. I saw him lose the Kentucky Derby. My wife's grandmother had just passed away earlier that morning, so it was a very rough day in our household. And I had the race on and I was listening to John. I wasn't even watching because I didn't want just another heartbreak. And then I'm hearing John's voice start to do that rise that Aaron's talking about. And that's what made me look up and go at the 16th pole, oh my God, he's going to win this race. And I lost it at that point. I might've watched it a few times. I might've saved the audio version of it to listen to if I ever need a little pick me up. So yeah, it was pretty great. You've called plenty of great horses like Welder. So seeing the great elite Tizamagician and calling him home, what was that like for you, John?
Well, that is such an appropriately worded question. He is the mighty great. So I'll be honest with you. I'm a little bit like your buddy Mike in that I'm not afraid to have a hot opinion about what I really think about some horses, and this is one of them. And I think I might have shared this with you, Magic, too. And this is because of my background with my dad and stuff. I believe that every horse has something that they do best, whether it be a style, a surface, or whatever it is. Every horse has something that they're best at. Tizamagician, you got to go. In other words, you've got to send him. You got to use his speed to be going and pedaling the bike, and you need to run him on the main track. He's going to get outkicked on the turf. Now, it's possible I could be wrong. Sure it is. But this is an opinion. This is a hot sports opinion, you see. So I thought this for a while, and then I feel like that's exactly how it played out that day in that race at Del Mar, because in a mile on the dirt, they typically go fast. You got to use speed. I just think he's one of those horses that's his best weapon. You got to use his speed, go out there, go fast on the main track, and just try to get them tired from chasing you. He's just going to keep pedaling and keep grinding and kind of give you that, but maybe on the grass he's going to get outkicked. And it has to be at the right level. So when all of that happened, I'll be honest, I was probably, because when I'm calling a race, I'm very much giving you only a slightly filtered stream of consciousness. I'm just giving you what is in my mind and what I'm seeing, and I'm just reporting it. So I probably was a little bit surprised that he continued to do what he was doing, but it was just, there was enthusiasm there because it was genuine, and I'm seeing it unfold. And honestly, that's all you heard. For me, different things work for different announcers. For me, it's never worked to script things out or really plan anything ahead of time. You just have to let it happen. So that was genuine enthusiasm when that happened, and maybe even a little bit surprising. So that was there in the moment. Yeah.
It was surprising for a lot of us. Tizamagician is going to be headed off to the Breeders' Cup for the marathon race. So they definitely want to try and put him on the front end and see how far he can run. Yeah. See how that goes. But looking ahead at the Breeders' Cup, we've got just a little over a week before we get, actually a week from today is the first day of Breeders' Cup. I want to get your thoughts because you got to see plenty of horses at California that were getting ready for it, including Red King won the Del Mar Handicap, Beat United, who's also going to that race. Sharp Samurai is going to be back on the dirt. You got to see him try that in the Pacific Classic and do well. So what are your overall thoughts as we get towards the Breeders' Cup? And are there any horses after seeing the pre-entries that you think have a really strong chance to maybe surprise at a price?
All right, so let's talk about the Breeders' Cup for just a minute. All right, and like we say, I'm just going to give you what's in my head. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. That's not what this show is. So two things. You're going to hear me sound a little bit old right now, and I'm about to be 44. And you're also going to hear me sound a little bit like a racing secretary at the same time. So the Breeders' Cup, guys, Curtis, you, in the 80s, the original Breeders' Cup, you couldn't wait to get the form on Friday night. And those races, because there were so few and you had to pick a horse and fit them into a division that maybe was something that you're taking a risk and trying it, and fillies and the sprint and that kind of stuff, it created these fantastic outcomes that made the Breeders' Cup, some of the appeal that it had. For me, and this is just my opinion, I recognize sponsorship, expansion. It's so much more now than it ever was before. 2-day format, bigger and better for everyone. I get it. But there's a part of me that feels like the original effect was spoiled by that. We've got a lot of races. We've got so many races. The racing secretary in me sees a lot of horses that I wish that they were maybe pointing for something else, because bless their hearts, maybe they don't even belong. It's just, and so to get to your point, when I'm having to go through the pre-entries and make sense of all this for my fantasy stable league that everybody plays in, and we're all trying to draft horses and stuff, I'm just looking through this, and it's already sensory overload for me. It really is. So now that that's out of the way, and I've told you how John Lees really kind of feels about the whole format, but again, I do love the Breeders' Cup.
Such a wet blanket right here. Look at that.
Yeah, I know. So I don't have a lot of really strong opinions right now until I see the final entries and maybe some post positions in some of the final fields. But I do need to stick with Authentic and the Classic. He's been good to me all year, and I need to just kind of hope that that comes through for me. Also kind of for fantasy stable. I'm liking the way that things are shaping up for Channel Maker and the Turf. I feel like it might be his year. I know that he's tried it a couple of times before, but some of those horses that just get better with age, and he's maybe never been better now. There's been some defections, some changes. I feel like maybe he could get it done there. I kind of like Yopon, is that it, in the sprint. There's just something about him. I feel like maybe he's freaky and quirky enough right now that he could get it done there. Other than that, fire a race at me and I'll tell you who I like, but I just don't have any other strong go to the window opinions right now about a horse. What about you guys?
My first question for you was going to be asking which of the 3 Bafferts in the Classic you liked, and you answered that with Authentic. Aaron, did you have any you wanted to ask him about?
No, I think he hates the Breeders' Cup, right? That's the headline.
That's the clip that's in the podcast version. That's the clip that's going at the front. Is this John Lees hates the Breeders' Cup and thinks it's terrible? So
I guess something that I've kind of seen debated on social media as far as just a race that just real quickly came to mind is Monomoy Girl or Swiss Skydiver, or are you going to try to beat both of them?
I'm not going to try to beat both of them. I would have to say Swiss Skydiver, honestly. That's no respect to Monomoy Girl. I think it's a tough call, though. But I'm not going to try to beat them. Yeah. Well, put it this way. I've got point of honor in my fantasy stable, not expecting any points from her. So, but I've had her all year, so I can't drop her. And then if she runs in and pays $50, you feel like a fool. So I have to stick with her, but probably Swiss.
Is this the famous John White fantasy league that we've heard about that's been going on for 30 years, 40 years?
It is. I haven't been in it that long, but it is. It's the one. So I've got a shot. I'm up in the top 3 right now, and there's a few of us that have got a shot. We have to have a good Breeders' Cup, but Authentic is a horse I've also had all year. The way that the format, everybody is a little bit different, but we draft horses clear back at the end of November, as in last year. Mm-hmm. And I was just fortunate enough to take a shot and pick him up at the beginning, and I've had him all year, which is why I have a shot to actually win the league. All he had done was broken his maiden last fall at the Bing Crosby season, going 5.5, and nobody paying.
Uh-oh, we just lost him. We just lost John. There he is.
Are we there?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah, you were saying that you picked up Authentic and nobody was paying attention. I discounted Authentic after he broke his maiden because he only did it at 5.5. And my learning with Bob Baffert is when he starts horses at 6.5, 7, those are the ones that he thinks are really going to stretch out and become monsters. Is that where you were kind of going with your point there?
It was. That's an excellent point. It wasn't for me that day, though. No, I'm not. How'd you like that? Yeah, no, actually. Here's what it was. And you guys will know this. When you're working at a race meet and you're there every day, like I work at Del Mar, I'm the simulcast host. When you watch every race each day live, one right after the other, some days are boring, some days are mundane. It's a weekday without a stakes race. You're just doing your job. But then when a good horse runs all of a sudden, it stands out. Like on a day like that when there's not much go. So there was something about his win that day. It was one of those moments that his win kind of woke you up. If it was a Thursday or whatever it was, you watch the race, you go, oh, geez, that was a good horse. There was just something about his visual impression that I got from being live and watching it that day compared to whatever anybody else did on that particular day or even that week. And so it was late in the draft. I took a shot. I didn't know what he was going to be, but that's all it was. It was just off that one race. Sometimes watching live and being there in the moment, in the element, can give you a positive impression. So that's all it was.
Well, Aaron, did you have any other questions left for John? I know we covered all of Will Rogers.
I don't have any other questions, but I just want to say great minds think alike, John, because I drafted Authentic in our Triple Crown Fantasy League winner. So, and I beat this guy right over here, Magic, who had Tis the Law, that bum. So we showed him who's boss in the Derby.
That was what decided it.
I felt really bad for yeah, and I honestly, I know that Mike Somich is not going to like this. I know, because he was pretty hard against Authentic on both of those days, and I felt bad for him because he stuck his neck out there with a strong opinion, which is what you have to do. I respect that. I mean that. I really do. So I felt kind of bad, but I know that he's been right about a lot of things. I just would like to add before we wrap that I love the Breeders' Cup. I think that the opportunities provided with the 2-day format and the sponsorship are just very exciting and very appropriate for the world that we're living in today. And I fully support an expansion of that in the future. And I like the track that it hops around to. And of course, it'll be at Del Mar next year. And so I do look forward to that, even if there's a piece of me that, no, we won't. No. We'll leave that part out. So anyway, I just thought I would toss that out there.
No, John, thank you so much for joining. Aaron and I know we were both really excited. We've been fans of yours for a very long time, so this was a big treat. Tell the folks who are listening and who are watching where they can find you on Twitter to get your thoughts and keep up with you as you travel around the country.
Yeah, at John J. Lees, just JOHNJLIES. And I will, quick teaser, I will get the opportunity. I got the second call up to the majors to come back and call the races at Del Mar over Breeders' Cup weekend when Larry Colmus will be at the Breeders' Cup, of course. So I'll try to have some good tweets and come up with a good few things there from the announcer's booth. And for me, it's just, more of a dream come true. So, I have to thank, of course, everybody at the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club for that opportunity to come back and do that again. So I'll be tweeting. I don't try not to make that excessive, but I'll be sure to give you guys a few good things there.
Yeah, you see, every once in a while you scare me because you'll disappear for about 2-3 months on Twitter, and I'm like, oh no, where'd John go? Something happened. But no, he's a great follow, and of course, but if you're playing Del Mar watching, you have to watch his pre-race shows and then the paddock stuff. It's all great. So, we're having trouble with John. You know what? I think this is the sign right here that we're supposed to let John go. This is usually the time when technology says, you're done. So, John, thank you so much for joining us. We got you back.
Can hear me, I can't hear you, by the way. I just want you to. Can you? I can see that you can hear me, and I've lost you guys. So that's gonna when I play this back and find out what was said, I'm gonna get a great big laugh out of that. Let's see.
No, we're just saying goodbye. That's all. Cool. Well, follow me on Twitter at Curtis Kellaward. Aaron is part of the Racing Dudes at Racing_Dudes. John at John J. Lees. We're gonna wrap things up because this is too much fun. Bye, John.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.